I feel like this whole thing is a setup. Like the whole thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
From beginning to end. You know, I had just started this whole, no carb things. What are we? You better not. You better not. Oh my God. Okay. First of all, I can sing way better than what's on this video. I think there was like, the air there was different.
It was a little thicker.
Let's just get to the podcast.
All right. Welcome to episode 6 of Let Me Tell It podcast. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Big Sis. Everybody met the boys last time. Those are my 2 oldest ones. So,
What'd you think of them being on here?
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
I think it'd be great to. They're a little too honest sometimes, or make believe honest. I don't know, but
they were everywhere trying to record this. I brought in two stools instead, and they're metal, and they just kept spinning the whole time and clicking and clacking and just being super loud.
Digging into all the snacks.
God, the Twizzlers. That I don't know how those Twizzlers lasted so long.
They were
as much as they were eating them. They were going to town on those Twizzlers.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of people say things. They really enjoyed seeing them and listening to them. And it's kind of neat to see your kids with so when the parents are around, kids tend to act differently. And even though your family and you are used to being around them, they kind of had free range to just do, a little more of what they wanted to do, or something that's just different to see them on film like that, because I wasn't here when you guys recorded that, so I had no idea. I would have had to fact check Kai's poop story and make sure that was not happening.
I didn't believe it when he told me it, but I ran with it. Gosh. Because when he said he poops in the sandbox at the house, Jack and I both were like, there's no sandbox at the house. So he corrected himself real quick.
Yeah, he loves the wow factor, the shock factor. If he can make people go, oh my gosh, he is all about it.
Yeah.
And Jack's a little more modest.
They both seemed, for the most part, they seemed very interested in the conversation. Like they understood the process and that it was like, okay, it's a podcast. So we're going to talk. They almost took it a little too serious. Like when they leaned into the mic the whole time and were like yelling at the mic. Jackson for a second was like talking to the mic about me to me. And I was just like, I kind of got confused there for a second on how this was all working.
I think because they watch YouTube videos more than I would like them to, and so they understand how there's viewers and there's likes, and you're talking to an audience basically. And so I think what he was trying to do was, he knew that this would be something people would be viewing. And so he was like talking to the crowd about his uncle, trying to give them more of a picture of what was going on. Yeah,
because even at the end, that was not set up at all. I'm trying to do the little sign off thing and he jumps in. He's like, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, hit the notification button so you don't miss a beat or something. I'm like, hey, you got it, man. Go ahead.
So at one point I had to hide our smaller remote for that they can use to get on YouTube, because they would wake up before me, or at least before they thought I was awake, and I could hear them whispering to each other. They would sneak into the living room, get on YouTube, and turn the TV down to where it wouldn't, they didn't think I could hear it. And they'd get on there and watch these videos. It would be things like they love the Dude Perfect guys and different challenges and stuff. It was nothing inappropriate, but still it's like, they know I don't want them just sitting and watching TV.
They're hooked on YouTube. And I thought it was cool when I came over and was able to pull up the video and watch the video with them on YouTube, of them on YouTube. So I feel like they really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, Jack still got embarrassed with everybody hearing. The thing he got embarrassed about during recording, he still got embarrassed about while we watched it all together, because he's like... but the thing is, it's like, we all know, they've been, him and the little girl, Libby, have been in the same class for 2 years now. And they've been, kind of sweet on each other in the sense of like really just innocent best friends. but it's like a love, but he's also reaching that age where he's like, oh, girls are gross. Like we're watching something and has anything to do with love or something. They'll go, Mom, cover your eyes. Like I don't get how things work. They'll go, oh gosh, they'll start talking really loud so I can't hear it.
He got so frustrated when Kai brought up Libby. He stormed out of here. I had to pause it. So the youngest one, Brighton, he wasn't able to join us, obviously. He's a little too young. His birthday's coming up.
Yep.
What do you plan on doing with that?
Man, so people who know me know I love to make a big deal about birthdays, and I love to go over the top. I kind of have this obsession with making themed food. So it doesn't matter if it's a holiday or a birthday. If there's a theme around it, I tend to go overboard. So with everybody, I have a lot of people who are still kind of hesitant to be in big crowds and things. So I only invited a few people that, are the people that tend to usually always come. And we're just going to do something out in the backyard. I mean, we have the swing set and the trampoline, and we'll probably have some little pools and stuff set up. But I like to kind of do things where, like, from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed, really as much as possible, just celebrating. Like,
you kind of set yourself up for failure sometimes because like on their third birthday, you go all out. So it's like, okay, on their fourth birthday, they expect a damn castle. It's like, well, hey, you can't really top last year. Right. So it's like, well, Mom, I'm 5 this year, so I need a horse.
Right. We got to have a pony of some sort. And so with that, I mean, I think that's something some parents, I know it's there for a while, people would be like, geez, Louise, girl, you go to so many birthday parties, because it was like an every weekend thing. I'd be at one of my friends' kids' parties. So with this, it kind of gives people a chance to go, sorry, we can't have a ton of people over. We're skipping birthday parties right now. So it's kind of, in a sense, I think it's as sad as it is. Like I had a friend, one of my good friends, she has her 2 older daughters. Both of them have birthdays in April, and one of them turned 16. That's a big birthday to kind of not be able to really celebrate. And that was right in April, in the middle of everything. So it sucks when they can't really celebrate and have a big party for it. But on the other hand, I think some parents are going, thank God I can take a couple months off from attending these kids' parties and being stressed out with planning. But, Brighton being young enough, I can still make it a big deal and he'll have fun. And even if it's just, a handful of people, I'll make sure to make it a big deal.
If it's at the house, I mean, it's still... You can make it seem like you're going all out. And at that young of an age, they don't know any better.
Well, when we were kids, I mean, we never had parties at places like All Stars or Chuck E. Cheese or anything like that. It was always at the house. Mom always made the cakes.
Every celebration was in the backyard.
Exactly. And it always
Christmas.
was fun.
Easter.
It was always a good time.
Yeah.
Never had, never like... felt like we were missing out. Our parties were always the best. Even before we really started partying, they were always the best. And Mom always did such a good job of making our cakes special. And so I think that's one thing that I've always tried to take from her is like, store-bought cakes are fun and, whatever. But when your parent really takes a lot of time to put
personalize
effort into what you're liking, then it's a little more special. So
was it... Because your birthday's in March. So, I mean, that was like towards the end of March. So the coronavirus had already set in and, shut everything down.
As a matter of fact, I think that week was the first real week of everything being shut down. And so, I just kind of made the decision that I wasn't going to let... my birthday's just
a pandemic.
I don't care if the entire world's shutting down. We're still celebrating.
It's still my birthday. I don't care.
Right. And so, it's one of those things where you kind of want to encourage people that regardless of what's going on around you, you want to find ways to enjoy life, be happy, appreciate what you have. And even though I planned on having, a party at the house and wanting to celebrate, I was so thankful to be in a position where I was still working. We were all healthy, we were safe, and I could find a way to have fun. And honestly, what we did for my birthday was probably one of the funnest ways I've ever celebrated as an adult. It becomes such a, repeated thing when you're like, okay, what are you going to do? Oh, it's my birthday. We're going to get dressed up and we're going to go hit bars and stuff. It's like, we've done that before. So doing something like this, I got all I wanted to find an old prom dress, but I'm pretty sure that I donated all of them to that there's like a thing here locally where you can donate Gown Town. So you can donate old prom clothes, and then kids that can't afford it or just don't want to spend money on it can go during prom season and go get it. And when I worked at that facility, I think I donated to the girls there. So I still had my wedding dress. And I made the joke. I'm like, it's been over 10 years that I wore that thing. So any bad luck that came with it, it's all pretty gone. Sure washed away. So
it was 2 years ago, right? When we went to Belize for your birthday. Was that 2 years ago?
We went last summer to Belize.
It wasn't for your birthday?
No, it was in July. I might have done it kind of like for a birthday present for myself and bought the tickets in March, but we ended up going in July. That was last summer, yeah. Okay. And that was a blast too, and I can't wait to go back. They're still not opening up international flights just yet, I don't think.
No?
I don't think so.
I really haven't checked into it.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do was... show the people how fun Belize.
No. Wait a second. Wait a second. You are already.
How much fun we all had on that trip. It was amazing.
Oh my God. No, it was an amazing trip. Let's give a little background here, okay?
Okay, you do that. I'll get the video.
No. There is absolutely no need to share that
just a
video.
Snippet. We've already talked about it. We have
pictures
to
instead
play
of
a
videos.
Snippet.
No,
of
I'm pretty
it.
sure. I feel like this whole thing is a setup. Like the whole thing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
From beginning to end. You know, I had just started this whole, no carb things. You better not. Oh my God. Okay. First of all, I can sing way better than what's on this video. I think there was the air there was different.
It was a little thicker. So I feel like that may have...
Why would you do this right now?
It's just...
Why?
I mean, they can't see it. I may put a little clip in.
Listen.
Maybe some sound. I don't know.
I was in a different place in life at that time.
That was a...
and we had been on the boat for like hours that day.
And the sun will really kind of get you.
Yeah,
I don't know. I felt fine.
Yeah, you also weren't dabbling in any of the native drinks there that I had. Oh my God. Don't you dare, dude. Don't even. That's terrible.
I had to bring that up.
No, you really didn't.
Well.
I feel like that was a segue into more blackmail. And the thing is that I don't know if you got on that video is,
There's 3 videos.
Okay, well, hopefully.
That was only just a part of one.
Hopefully somewhere on the video. I can remember getting back to the, resort after that little incident there and maybe drinking some water and kind of coming back around. And we watched those. And I remember me and you standing there dying, laughing.
Oh, it was the best.
Watching it.
It was the best.
The thing that killed me was the other man that we found out ended up owning the karaoke bar that we were at.
That was on the bar?
That got on the bar. I thought I was bad that
night.
And he's cat crawling along this bar.
But the thing is, he owns the place. How often does he do that?
It wasn't his first night in town.
It's a different tourist every night. I'm going to put on a show.
He is giving them a show. He's like, you came. I am going to lay this out for you guys. Terrible, man.
I had to.
Let me just put this out there for everybody who knows Aaron. If you drink, do not go out with this dude because he does not drink. Mm-mm. And some people, when you go out and you're drinking, or you're drinking and you're not. Wait a second, they're drinking and you're not. You might get annoyed with the drunk people. I think Aaron takes, instead of getting frustrated and upset, he finds a way to make you feel like...
I see it as an opportunity.
Yes. Because I'm not the only one who I've seen footage of.
Oh, no,
where they've been drunk and he capitalizes on those moments.
I have footage of people sleeping in parking lots. Mm-hmm. I mean, just
going on
anything
rants.
you can think of. Yeah, because I mean, if I'm gonna have to sit there and babysit you the whole time, I gotta have some fun myself. You can't be the only one enjoying the night.
Well, and I mean, in my defense, that was the first time I had taken a vacation out of the country in 10 years after being a mom for like 8 of those. Almost I kind of let loose a little bit, and I knew I was with you and with my other friends there that weren't going to let anything happen. And so, and the whole, drinking in the sun, man.
It happens to the best of us.
Does it though?
Well, that's what they say.
A lot of people
I don't know who they are, but
do you have a place in mind where you want to go as soon as you're able to get back out and travel some more?
I feel like there's going to be so many restrictions for a long time, as far as like domestic, like stuff inside the States. You're not going to be able to so like I fly on standby, and even with that, they don't want the flights over 75% full. Okay. So I'm not allowed to fly even if there's an open seat, but it's going to be too many people on the plane.
Gotcha.
So like this weekend I was going to go to Denver, but I mean, it depends. There could be 10 seats open, but if that puts the flight load over 75, then I'm not going to be able to make it.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're still going to be having people quarantine, when you get back from international, but
it might be cool to think about some spots you might want to check out and be able to do road trips so you can take your dogs with you. And, I know you've seen so many of the states, but there might be some cool places that you could go still visit that road trips wouldn't be terrible.
There's a place in Texas. I can't remember what it's called. Like the Devil's, not the Devil's Waterhole. That's
that's where I was at in Belize.
Yeah, that was. I've been there already.
That's where I was drinking from.
Devil's Lake, Texas. I don't know, but it's like a really cool. I might be completely off. I don't know, but no, yeah. There's a few places. Within a few hours of driving that I think would be cool to visit. I'm just so spoiled, I guess, since I've been working at the airport and get to fly whenever. Yeah. I don't like driving.
I don't either
anymore.
Man. I know.
It's it just seems cramped. It seems like it
takes so long.
Like for peasants. Like I don't partake in that stuff anymore.
No. It might be worth it just to kind of kick back and hold off and just kind of see what happens, and then get back to where you can just do it like you're used to, because it almost seems like it would be more hectic and more frustrating to try to do things for fun when you get to the other places, who knows what kind of restriction each state's going to have on what's open and how it kind of takes away from the whole vacation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because I mean, each place has their own set of rules and their own restrictions on what people can do, how many people can be there.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, it's just, to me, it's not even worth it. I'd rather just hang out here at home, take care of these dogs and just try to be healthier, work out when I can. And I don't know, it's too much to think about, too much crazy stuff going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
I really don't know what to think of it all.
Well, excuse me, I kind of feel like that's always been such a key part in all of it. When I say all of it, like just some of the things that maybe the general population could have more influence on, but we don't, because we're so distracted with the things that we have to do in a day-to-day that who has time to sit and focus on some of the things that are really important and going on, and that allows for a lot of the chaos to be able to continue.
Like just how we were talking about the other day, how like the president is in office for 4 years, but the state officials or other people, are up for election every 2 years. And they just kind of, fly under the radar, and nobody really pays too much attention to them. And that's where a lot of the change can be made if people pay more attention to those people in office, in those positions, and get the people in who actually want to do better, instead of the ones who are just, playing puppeteer, you know, from the higher ups or whatever.
Right, which is what the president always tends to be. It's such a big title, and so much attention gets focused on that. But then we know that the power kind of lies underneath that. So it's like, you think about Trump being in there, and he's such a clown and like show off type of person that he can grab everyone's eye and everyone's attention. He's whether you're for him or against him. Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing that I keep saying through all of this is it really scares me to think about what it is they're trying to kind of slide under the radar, that he has been such a focus for so much throughout his entire term so far, that I guarantee there's things that are just going right under everybody's noses that we should be more focused on. But he's so attention seeking, and he grabs so many people's attention because he's just so over the top and so crude and insensitive and just ridiculous with how he approaches things.
It's so easy to talk about him and to focus to make him the topic of conversation, because he's just like, he's so outlandish that it's just like, it's the most attention getting, like the clickbait type stuff. Like people don't want to read an article on, you know, whether Bill 7252 gets passed about, you know, the funding for police. Like people are like, okay, cool. Like that's an everyday thing, you know, like it should be, but they don't look deep into that. But when there's an article about Trump calls a racist or calls a, you know, a certain ethnicity this name or that name, like people are like, oh shit, like this is our president doing this.
Yeah. I wonder too, like, since all of this, especially here throughout the last couple of weeks with the protests and riots and stuff, I can't be quiet about it because it's something that has been so much a part of what I've seen and experienced throughout my whole life, that when it comes up, I get this emotional reaction, which I think a lot of people do. And one thing I've wondered is, like, you know, we're talking about this equality. And then so I always kind of talk with people about, there's male privilege, there's white male privilege. And even you and I have talked about, you know, all this traveling you do, and a lot of times you're by yourself, and I'm like, dude, aren't you afraid? And you're like, it's not a thought that crosses your mind. Whereas, and I'm talking about you going to a foreign country by yourself. And I know so many women that can't even think about going in a grocery store parking lot by themselves without feeling threatened.
In their hometown.
Right, in their hometown. Yeah. And so I started thinking about, I'm like, you know, with him getting away with and almost idolized for being this very blunt, very like in your face type of person, and people really are like cheering him on for that. But if I try to run for any position locally, and I'm someone who speaks my mind and has a strong opinion and is a bold, like doesn't kind of hold back on what I feel, and maybe they wouldn't take me seriously because I have tattoos or because of whatever, it's like, would I get the same support and encouragement being in the, you know, part of the Bible Belt, who, you know, they might vote for him, but locally they wouldn't vote for somebody who's maybe a female, right? Who's, you know, biracial. It's like, would you get that same support? Could you have the room to be who you are truthfully and not have to have a publicist who can like guide you on how to talk and how to present yourself? Could you be your real self and get that same support like he seems to be able to get away with doing? Yeah.
You two could both have the same exact personalities, but your labels would come from a whole different bucket than what he gets.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not even... I feel like that's more male privilege than racial privilege, because it could be a white woman and a white man. The man, just in how society is going to gonna more. Yeah, the man's they're gonna be a lot more lenient on how he acts and portrays himself.
Right, especially with being vulgar and things like that. It's like there's still this, you know, it's crazy because growing up with you and our other two brothers, I always had this like point to prove, almost like, oh, I can run with the boys, I can do what the boys can do, because it was always like, you're a girl, so, you know, you can't do this or you can't do that. And it always kind of pushed me to be like, I can do whatever I want kind of thing. but then, as I've gotten older, there's a certain sense of respect that comes along with carrying yourself like a lady. But I feel like that even that I don't have a real like typical idea of what that means. Like you can still have strong opinions, be vocal, but just kind of like cleaning it up in a way where you don't have to push yourself or like be so much with it that it's over the top because you're really trying to prove this point, because that can turn people off. Like you have to figure out how to have a little bit more tact with it whenever you're doing it. If you want to be able to appeal to more people. Yeah. So it's frustrating. And
it's hard because what appeals to one person doesn't appeal to the other. Right. So as you're trying to, be more subtle and more, elegant about it, some people are going to be like, or try to take advantage of that and be more forceful with you, right, to where you have to look like you're a pushover or you're not as strong. Right. And
that's for me where if I felt like if I was in the limelight of politics, that's where I have this problem in my life in general is I always go in with the best intentions of being polite, being respectful. And it's like remark after remark after remark of being degrading in any kind of way. Or, it's like, it's this whole other fire that kind of comes out and it goes real quick to like snap on somebody. And I don't want to, with the topics right now with race, I don't want to engage in that way because I don't think, I don't know if that was you, I was saying it too. It's kind of like with religion. If you really are faith-based and you're talking to somebody who doesn't believe, then you cannot push your views down their throat. If anything, that's going to turn them off more. So the same thing when it comes to stereotypes is if you are screaming at them and saying, how could you? And, really acting out of this like almost immature space of explaining things, then it's not going to make them go, you know what, maybe I was wrong about this certain demographic of people. But on the other side of that, how frustrating is it to have things like this happen in our society, since anybody who's talking about this right now has seen racism go on for their entire life, has seen oppression, has seen police brutality, has witnessed exactly what we just saw on a huge scale across the nation, around the world, since any of us have been alive. Yeah. And we're still acting like that people can use the race card, or people, taking away from the real level of what's happening and going, oh, that's not really what it is. And, oh, if they would just do this. And if you just, it's like, it doesn't even, it's so disrespectful to try to minimize the experience of so many people and the history and everything. So
I think I almost want to say it's more just good versus bad, like good intentions versus bad intentions, but it's 100% people who of ethnicity being stereotyped, and they're not as lenient when it comes to police officers. The police officers already have a negative connotation of how this instance might play out. Like just because of the person's skin color, like, okay, I got to be on my toes a little bit more because this person it could go any direction, right. And that's not something that European white people in general have to worry about when they get in a face to face with a police officer for any instance. Yeah. It's not, the majority of the time it never crosses their mind.
Exactly. Dave Chappelle did that perfect skit of, or it wasn't even a skit, it was just part of his stand-up, and he's talking about he's with his white buddy and they were smoking weed, and so they're already kind of paranoid and then they're lost, and his friend goes up to the cop and he's like, I'm looking for 3rd Street or whatever, and the cop like, hey, a lot of people know that skit, and that's
like, you're on 3rd Street,
right? And Dave Chappelle, being a black man growing up on the East Coast, I'm pretty sure he's from like New York area. I think
so.
Either way, I'm pretty sure like inner cities. I'm sure his experience with the police was not good, and so you have this immediate fear. And if you think about it, how does anybody respond to something when they feel threatened or they feel attacked? It's that whole fight or flight or freeze thing that kind of comes into play. So, if you're doing nothing wrong and you're being basically interrogated for no reason, it is very, very, it would be a natural response to get defensive and go, who are you to ask me what I'm doing walking down the street? I'm walking down the street and you're looking at me and you already see me as a threat. Therefore, I have to feel like you're a threat because I don't know what you're going to do to me.
Right.
And it's this kind of back and forth thing that happens. And that's why I think, I used to want to do therapy with inmates. But then, I have this, I think I watched too many prison movies growing up, and I have this pretty unrealistic fear of like being in a jail and a riot breaks out and I'd be in there and it'd be something horrible like just happening. I can't.
Becoming leader of a gang or something.
Or like, I also feel like, what if I get trapped in the prison and they're like, you're trying to pose as a, this professional and you're really an inmate. I just have all these really weird ideas.
I was trying to figure out where you were going with that.
And I know that's going in left field, but I think what might be more effective would be to, talk with police departments about what is the opportunity for people to, like, why isn't it a part of regular police training to also be in therapy? They deal with horrific situations constantly. And why is it not part just of the system, of the plan, of the job to say, even once a month that you take a week off and you do intensive therapy, or, that every once a week or every other week. I mean, there should be something there for them to go in and say, hey, this is completely confidential. And, I saw my partner do this and I felt like it was wrong. I had to do this and I felt like it was wrong. But, and have that time and that space to really be honest, where they're not putting it on their families, where they're not just talking about it with other cops.
And it's not just building up for that next traffic stop.
Exactly. Helping them be more aware of, the fact that they could be becoming jaded as to what it is they deal with on a regular basis. So many times it seems like they walk into a situation with their mind already made up with who's the bad guy, who's not, and how we're going to handle this. And you have to think about it. You get tired of dealing with people's shit. You don't want to keep hearing everybody in jail is innocent, right? If you were to go walk through a jail, everybody's innocent because nobody wants to be held accountable for their behaviors, whether they're, right or wrong.
So yeah, I believe it's a very difficult job to be a cop. Like that's to never know what the outcome of your day is going to be. Like that's, because
they're targeted too. If we're being, I mean, they're absolutely targeted. And I feel like within the minority groups, especially, it's all part of the system that has led us and continued to be such an issue. Is there's so much mistrust when you think all the way back. Like I always tend to think about like the Tuskegee. Oh my gosh, yes. And just why even that in itself, that's led to a lot of the reasoning as to why things are dealt with within families and not seeking help, whether from therapy or going to doctors. And then you think about why, diabetes and heart disease and high cholesterol is higher in the Black communities, because they already don't trust that they can walk into a doctor's office and have, white doctors tell them things that are going to help them, because it's embedded that I can't trust you because you're going to try to kill off people that look like me. And that bleeds over into police, into, judges and the whole entire thing. Yeah. So it's much easier to say, I don't trust you, fuck you, about the cops than it is to say, they're out for my best interest, especially when this is the common occurrence that happens over and over again. And
it goes up to the highest levels because it's stuff like that has happened since the beginning of time. Of people, just testing different things or trying to figure out different things, what will work and what won't work on the people lower in the economic ladder.
Right.
And it's like, so if I can't trust the police, I can't trust the government, I can't trust, the doctors and lawyers and shit, like to have my best interest.
Right.
It's all about money. Like, so yeah, I'm going to look out for myself. I'm going to do what I have to do for myself, my family and my community to make sure that we're taken care of.
Right. It's a trip. I just was talking to, somebody today about how, the whole Black Panther movement was started to protect Black people from exactly the same type of stuff we're dealing with now. And that was shut down so quickly. And so it was targeted, to not allow Black people to come together and look out for each other in communities. And what's crazy to me is you think about these people and these, in these bigger cities, especially, there was the cops bombed city blocks to kill the Black people who were inside that were fighting against this stuff, who they weren't allowed to be able to have these guns and protect their families. Mm-hmm. But then in this present day, you have, people who at least appear to be white supremacists standing side by side with the president, having guns and getting a good old boy pat on the back. And I just wonder, with what even happened here at 21st and Mays, and these guys are walking around with these huge guns and all of this, ammo on them. Yeah. If that was to happen here, and if that would have happened over at 29th and Arkansas, what would they have been met with? Would they have been given the same space to say, oh, you're not here to harm anybody, you're just here to protect people, mm-hmm. and to get away with it? And the fact that kind of stuff, and then, all of this, it drives me so insane because I have family everywhere. And, us being biracial, we have white, we have Black. And, for the most part, even on our white or Black side, it's still intertwined with different races. But I have people who these mentalities are so embedded that they can't see anything other than what they believe, that, it's not as bad as people think, and they're not as oppressed, and it's just an excuse and all this stuff. And so people keep throwing this all lives matter out there. I saw a video today of people doing a peaceful protest, driving down the street, and they drove past a group of white men, and they had all lives matter signs up, but there was one white man kneeling on another white man's neck, screaming out stuff at the people driving down the street, and there's all life matter signs behind him. It was set up, like they were pretending, like staging it. Yeah, they were playing out the George Floyd scenario. And I'm thinking, how are you even protesting all lives matter, but then at the same time you have it in you to make light of, or make a joke about, or be so insensitive about what's happened? And there was literally like a challenge, a George Floyd challenge. And there's people, and it's like, how can you be mad at people? How is it there's such a disconnect to not see the need for people to stand up and say, this cannot go on any longer, while there's also people on the other side acting like what we saw was not a horrific murder? Well, that's just a mixture of privilege and ignorance. Mm-hmm. I mean, and also them wanting to do shit to get clout, mm-hmm. on social media just for a couple likes. They'll throw anybody under the bus, or do whatever would get the reaction, the most attention. Yeah. Isn't that funny? The reactions, like on Facebook, you have now these options to like something, love something, you can care about something, it can make you angry. It's all this reaction. Mm-hmm. But that, when I work with people and we're talking about coping skills and how to deal with your emotions, there's a difference between responding to situations and reacting to situations. Mm-hmm. And when you are completely seeing red and having these hair trigger reactions to things, you're not thinking clearly. You're not making the most effective choice. You're not handling things in your best self. Yeah. And it's so easy to get people to that point. All you gotta do is poke the bear. Everybody has hot button issues that mm-hmm. when you talk about these things, you mention them things, they're sign, they're all their little spidey senses stand up and they go, this is something I'm not going to tolerate. This makes me uncomfortable. It pisses me off. And if you're not able to have a good control over yourself when those conversations come up, then you can be easily manipulated by other people because you're reacting off of emotion. And there's a lot of different topics that people feel very strongly about, but there's also just debatable topics that mm-hmm. people are so married to their idea absolutely that they will not change. Right. Like it's what they believe mm-hmm. and that's it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't care mm-hmm. what facts you have. Mm-hmm. I don't care, how mm-hmm. persuasive you can be. Mm-hmm. People are going to stick with their idea. And I think that's where the majority of America is disconnected, because mm-hmm. they're not willing to listen to someone else's idea, mm-hmm. To maybe be like, oh,
well, I did think this, but now that you say that, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Right.
People aren't willing to to listen.
Yeah.
They listen to respond and not listen to take it in,
Exactly.
to understand what people are trying to say.
And I think that's the point that, I made last night. I got into kind of this online debate with this woman, and I'm so thankful for my white friends who are willing to be vocal and come and stand up and point things out, so it doesn't, and this is another point that's being missed. It's not a white versus black, it's everybody versus racism thing that, you're seeing all these people say. And I think it's really hard for people to admit when they're wrong, or to, admit that maybe some of their beliefs aren't as aren't as helpful to the greater good. And even at that, I don't think as many people are even concerned with the greater good. As long as I'm eating well and my people are taken care of, that's where the line kind of is drawn. And there's this idea, it seems like, where there has to always be somebody on the bottom. That way I can feel like I'm on the top. Because
a lot of those beliefs most likely came from their parents and how they were raised. So it's like, if I tell you something that you have believed your whole life is wrong,
it challenges what you know.
Yeah, it challenges you as a person. You're like, okay, so I'm taking this personal.
Exactly.
Like, you're talking about me, like as
my family,
right?
And that's what sparked so much emotion off that one post. It said something to the effect of, not all Trump supporters are racist, but all Trump supporters decided that being racist wasn't a deal breaker. You know what I mean? To get him in there and to continue to support him. Yeah, because you're enabling his racism. You may not be racist, but for you to just kind of set that to the side,
let it go.
Important.
That's not okay. That's where people need to speak up, because so much shit happens. Just like with George Floyd, when he died, people were standing by watching. That's the same shit. Like, you wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't have had your knee on his neck for 8 minutes.
And nobody...
But you allowed it.
When they've done different social experiments, it's like... or not even that. There was the story I remember hearing about, and a woman... It was like in New York, and this woman was being murdered in the street, and all these people are watching from the apartment buildings. It's so... close knit in there, and everybody, and this is what actually happens when there's an accident or there's a need for people to respond, and there's a bunch of people around. It takes people longer to react because they're going, oh, you're going to do something, this person's calling 911, they pass it to someone else is going to take care of it.
It's called the diffusion of responsibility.
So then when there's not as many people, you go, holy shit, somebody has to do something, because there's only a couple of us, so I have to act. And I had my one of my good friends said, had I been there, or if I ever witnessed something like this, we're both going to jail, because I'm not going to stand by and watch this kind of thing happen, and knowing I could have prevented somebody being murdered. And there's stuff that just continues to come out about that I wasn't aware of, or that they're not talking about right at first. And a good friend of mine, Lester, who his was the first podcast I was ever on, so shout out to Lester Rowe. He does amazing things, and he's really active in the community, but he just made this video today talking about how there was already an ambulance en route before he was actually dead. They already sensed there was something going on with him, whether he was on drugs or maybe had some mental health issues or whatever, wherever it was coming from. There was an ambulance coming before he had actually been killed. So that in itself, there's been the funding continues to get cut and cut and cut, to where back in like the 60s, 70s, when there was all these state-funded hospitals and things where people could go and get mental health treatment, and that could be people who were homeless and on, and keeping them off the streets by being in the hospitals. Now, a lot of weird stuff went down in those hospitals, like lobotomies and a shock therapy and all this stuff that is not ethical, but so there's things that needed to be tweaked with that, but it gave people a place to go to get help if maybe they didn't have insurances or whatever the case was. And that funding gets taken away. We're taking funding away from the juvenile systems to get these kids the reform that they need. It just sticks them in a place. And then, we both worked in those types of places to see what happens, and those kids are not getting the help that they need. And I used to say all the time when I worked there, they can be our problem today while they're these little kids and they're, maybe doing petty crimes or selling drugs or, doing this kind of stuff. But they're everybody's problems when they become adults and they're still offending on people and they're, adult criminals at that point because they didn't get the help they need as kids.
Yeah. And as kids, they're a whole lot more malleable in their ways. So why not stop those actions in the beginning instead of just kind of, just like, okay, we'll give you 3 months here, we'll give you 2 months here. And in that time, you're not learning shit. You're not bettering yourself at all, only to grow up and to continue doing what you were doing and to go even deeper into
career
it.
Criminals, man. I mean, they go in, what do they say? You go in with like a misdemeanor and come out with like a master's in
criminology.
Yeah, because you're in there and you're learning like, oh, you're watching people, you're hearing about what other people have done, and everybody thinks they're a smarter criminal than the next. They go, oh, I can do that better. I could have got away with that. Yeah. And until they try it, and then they're in there as an adult. Yeah. And that's why I'm so big about intervention or about prevention instead of intervention, because when you are able to get communities resources, you can prevent certain mentalities from forming and habits from forming and then not have to go in later to intervene and say, well, you've already developed this cycle of, whatever, whether it's crime, drug abuse, sex trafficking, whatever it is. And now I'm going to try to come in and disrupt that and change your focus and make you believe you have a different opportunity. Yeah. We need to be getting in at those younger ages and not just with the kids, but with the families. You might have to intervene for the parents, but you want to be able to provide that prevention for the kids to where you're breaking these cycles and letting people see that there's things available for them that they never knew before. Yeah. It has to be a bigger thing there. And the thing that's crazy, it's like, we're fighting against these things that we already know, that there's money that comes out of how many people get arrested and all of the courts and, people paying off their restitution. And, it's job security in a way, because then you have the probation officers and all these people, all of these jobs that have to go through and check and make sure people are trying to be good people. If we are actually giving people resources and education to prevent some of that crime, that might take away from jobs from people. You know what I mean? And so it's like, are people making these decisions really wanting to see less crime? Or is it something that they are kind of feeding off of because then you can pay people who have felonies less money for their jobs because they can't, it's all a system. It's all a thing. And it just makes you feel like, who the hell is really running what's going on? Yeah.
So the ones who are pulling the strings, you have to think about, where do they have their money invested? Are they investing in prisons or in the judicial system like that to keep people, reoccurring and coming back to jail and doing all this so that they can just keep their money going? Because that's, a lot of the shit with the government and people who get like their dirt comes out of them doing dirty stuff, and like it all plays back to them getting $1. Oh yeah. So like it's just,
the debate last night, the lady, I don't even know this woman, and she got I don't even know. I figured out that we had been like kind of doing some training, I guess, in the same gym, because the two people that we had as mutual friends were both from the kickboxing gym that I go to. And so
is there going to be a fight set up?
I don't know.
At the end of all this?
You know what? That'd be the thing to put some money on. Just for, we could even do it, safely with gloves or whatever. But
all proceeds go to Black Lives Matter.
Exactly. You could definitely, I would sign up for that. But, she was saying things like that, like, oh, you need to do your research about where Trump's invested his money because it goes into these communities that are so diverse. And I'm like, honey, even if that's true, even if he has donated to certain campaigns or certain groups that look like it's, supporting Black lives or Black education, he's trying to get Black voters. He wants to, if he's putting it into those communities, I guarantee you what they're making is nowhere near what he makes off of the business being in that area. So it's like, it's not like it's him doing it out of the goodness of his heart to benefit a community. It's because there's some kind of capital gain. Yeah. So it's the kind of thing that people can kind of go back and forth about forever. And there's so much information out there. It would be really awesome to be able to. So I'm hearing about these different groups and organizations set up, and this might have been something I already told you too, but set up in bigger cities like Chicago and in California and stuff, to where they're really getting organized and talking about what needs to happen and taking action and forming groups and having platforms for people to get together and talk. And I just think with this being so like a digital time for everybody, I think that it would be so cool to see every major city having something like that, these forums where people, where they're holding weekly Zoom calls or whatever, to where people can, chime in and be a part of it, but then also do that like monthly nationwide, to where like, maybe it's not everybody that's always in the group, but just like maybe the founders of the groups or the heads of the groups that meet and correlate stuff across the entire nation to say, here's what we're doing here. Here's some ideas, sharing information. There's so many of them already getting started. And I think that's something that doesn't get as much attention once, when these things happen, and they happen more, like every murder isn't being globalized like this. So it happens all the time, but each time these ones that get pinpointed and called out happen, and there's these big reactions. Seems like after the trials happen and we hear about what the conviction is, things kind of die down a little bit within communities. It's not a forward moving thing. And these groups are so cool because there is that opportunity to continue working and moving and networking with people.
And I don't see why that hasn't been something that's put in place already. Because when you think about any big corporation, any business, they all have different branches and they all, spread nationwide, whatever. And they have conference calls and it's the CEO, whoever is leading it. And they're like, okay, what are we doing right in this area over here for you guys to be profiting so much, or for everything to be going so smooth? And they give their feedback. They say, oh, we're doing this right, we're doing this happened over here and we fixed it by doing this. And like, okay, so maybe every place should try this out. Why would that not be something that we could do as a nation? And be like, okay, in LA we held a conference at Staples Center and we talked about this and this and that, and we figured out that this has been an issue for this community. So I feel like this could correlate with Baltimore, and then the representative for Baltimore say, yeah, we also tried that and it did this and did that. So I feel like that's something that should definitely be put in place to stop all the bullshit that's been going on
forever. And I think I seriously just think that so much of it has to do with people fearing like anybody that gets really involved and gets a voice and gets any type of organization going in that direction to protect minority lives ends up being a target of violence. And I think that that's a scary thing for people when you're already a target in your day-to-day, and then putting another target on your back as far as having whoever come after you to try to shut that down. And then also, so many people, when you've got kids and work and the kids have sports and, you've got bills and you're trying to get through school, it's like there's so many things. You want to help, you want to be involved, and sometimes you don't know what a good first step would be. And so it puts you at a standstill where you don't know which way to go. And then, like I said, before you know it, the media is not covering it as much. So then it's not in the front of your mind, and you go back to kind of living your day-to-day life until something really horrible happens again that's directed is some way to your life, whether it's somebody that is happening to, or it's a constant feed of information being pushed into your face through all of the media and everything that happens. So,
and shit like this happens. I mean, once every 3-4 months, something crazy that the police do, or something that some person goes in and shoots up whatever. And it's like, just with the George Floyd incident, it was just like the perfect storm, because usually the number one thing, like when people riot after a crazy bad incident happens, people are like, oh, don't these people have jobs? Like, why aren't they at work right now?
Nobody's got shit to do but be pissed off.
People have been locked up for over 2 months. So, of course, when they riot, usually anyways, when shit like this happens, Oh, it's gonna be
out of not even out of control, because it's not even like it's a crazy reaction to go, this is fucked up and it has to stop.
Yes.
It is well overdue. It is ridiculous. And somebody, they put these posts out about all of these different things, and it's so hard to stay level-headed when you're trying to really get ground going and connecting people. But the perfect example is the white kid that went into that church and sat and had church with these people, and then turns around and shoots at people in the church, and they walk him out. They still, after him murdering people, did not see him as much of a threat. Gun in hand, blood on hands, lives lost.
Yeah.
He is not as much of a threat as somebody who may or may not have wrote a bad check, or is maybe having a mental health issue that needs to be addressed. And again, this to me goes back to the propaganda that was pushed in everybody's faces. If people act like you shouldn't bring up slavery, we should get over it, you weren't alive when it happened. But it's so much more than just first of all, that is deep rooted in our history. It is a part of our lives. And then you take what happened after slavery with Jim Crow laws and all of these things that prevented Black people from being able to vote, and making it so difficult for them to it wasn't like slavery ends, now you're just living like the rest of us. You were still oppressed. You were still isolated. You were still targeted for violence for so long.
There's still been slavery ever since then. I mean, and it wasn't even just with Black people. There's been slavery with Japanese people, with different, from country to country in Europe. They would enslave people. Yeah. And it's been a worldwide it's been a human issue from the beginning of time.
And what I'm thinking, that what I was getting at with that was, after that happened, and then you have these so over the top ads that are being put out of, this is how, you can't trust Black people around white women because the Black men just can't control themselves. It was this idea that is just put into your mind over and over and over again. Movies, that you're dangerous, they're a threat, they're violent. And, I'm pretty sure it's the Milgram experiment. And I think we talked about this too, but, I think it was at Stanford or one of these, big colleges, and they take a group of students and they put half of them, they assign them as the inmates, and half of them they assign as the
guards.
The guards. And the way these kids adhered to what they believed the prisoners had rights to do and what a guard was able to do, these guards became, at the beginning, they're these kind people, and then they became assertive and aggressive, and they would demean them and all this stuff. And these
within days.
Yeah. And these kids who were assigned as prisoners become depressed and maybe, plotting against them and all this stuff. And it's like that labeling theory is so huge. So when you have that go on for generation after generation after generation, and then it's easy to understand how some people can live up to those stereotypes, and how some people are working so hard to break away from them, and within the minority group, and then outside of it as well, how you view people within that group. It's not that hard to understand why people would look at people that are different than them and think you're a threat.
Yeah, I don't think that the riots, I'm not really torn up about it.
Oh, you're not torn up about it?
I'm not torn up about it, no.
Here's my thing with that, and I think people have to be really careful when that kind of thing happens, because it seems like if you if we use our experience of what happened here, nothing got torn up at 21st and Mays. They went back into a community that is more populated with minorities and tore up the Quick Trip in their community, which makes no sense, because then the people that they're standing up for are now limited by the resources in their own community. Yeah. And then what happens too, there's when you have people burning down, if they are Black-owned businesses or even white-owned businesses, it doesn't even matter. And then those people can't afford to rebuild. And then what happens is, a few years later, somebody else comes by and buys that building, and it's what they're selling is so expensive. Into a big corporation. Exactly. Yeah. That people in those areas can't even afford that. Or the products themselves become higher because If you
they have to make up from the
lost profit, you know, from people stealing. Even if you steal, then you notice this gradual increase in how much something costs.
The looting, that's different than rioting, obviously, but the rioting, I feel like, is necessary. It's like it's built up tension. It's built up tension because the shit's been happening for forever, and it's just like, okay, you're not hearing us. We try to do this shit peacefully. We've tried several dozens of times to do this shit peacefully, and even when they rioted, when the kid in St. Louis was murdered,
was that Michael? Man, it's so many of us.
There's so many. I don't remember either, but I mean, it's just like you can only do shit peacefully so long. You can only ask somebody to please stop so many times before you get pissed off and you fuck somebody up.
And the thing is that I heard somebody else saying this. It's like, how in the world? How dare you ask people who have experienced the most racism to have the most tolerance at the same time?
Right.
It's such a norm. It's something we see all the time, but people of color are supposed to be tolerant of it instead of teaching people to not be that way.
Yeah.
That's, and I've gotten to this before with people with the whole rape culture thing. Some people don't believe in it. And I'm like, me having 3 sons, I have to make sure that they understand, the things to pay attention to not make a woman feel threatened, to stand up for her, to look out for her, to, not feel like you can get away with these certain things because you're a man or whatever. So how often are women blamed when they are sexually assaulted? Well, what were you wearing? What were you drinking? Did you lead him on? And to where you're blaming the victim. What?
I'm just thinking of another Dave Chappelle part of his stand-up.
And he's like, I'm not a cop.
He's like, yeah, I may be wearing this cop outfit, but I'm not a cop. And at the same time, like, yeah, I get it. The rape culture is real. You should not, see a woman for what, I don't know how I'm trying to say it. As an object. Yeah. Like she shouldn't have to worry about, if she has too much cleavage showing or.
Let's think about this for 1 second. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought, but let's think about this. If a woman was walking down the street butt ass naked, does that give a man a right to touch her?
No.
So then if we can clearly say, and let's say she's, whatever. If we can clearly say that just because she's naked and she's walking down the street, that you still do not have the right to touch her, then that to me takes out any other argument about, her ass was hanging out, her titties were hanging out, she was being flirtatious, whatever. And I get it. Some people like attention, and they might put themselves in a position to where these guys are gawking over her, and then when one of them touches her, it's like, oh, how dare you think that I would be that way? I get it. It's confusing for people.
Yeah. I think that I don't think any man should just unwittingly touch. Is that right? Is that a word?
Yeah. I mean,
unwittingly, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Touch a woman. Like, and I've seen it so many times, like in the club. Like I get it. In the club, it's kind of different because it's like, it's a social, everyone's kind of mingling with everybody, and they'll kind of like reach out and just like kind of touch their arm, like, hey, baby, what's up?
Yeah.
But even then, I feel like that's like, that's so unnecessary. Yeah. You shouldn't. I don't think you should ever.
It's sleazy.
Just grab a woman for any reason. Right. I've been grabbed myself. I can remember
You grab yourself?
No, I've been grabbed myself.
Oh, yeah. I thought you said I even grabbed myself.
Several times. Like I was in Miami. I was at Club Live. I was walking from one side of the bar from the club to the other. A group of 3 girls walked by. One girl just straight up grabbed my dick as she walked by.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I didn't know, like I wasn't offended. It wasn't like I was going to fill out a police report about it. But at the same time, that's because I'm a man. I'm 6'3". I'm a large man. Like if shit was to escalate from there, I know I can handle myself. But if I was to just walk by, if it was me and two of my homeboys and we just walk by a girl standing by herself and I grab her pussy, like I'm sure she's gonna feel very violated and very scared for what's gonna happen next. Right. So
it might
shit
get
like
you
that
in the White House though.
I may just run with that and go for presidency after that.
You might get a dinner and the White House. You'll go. How did I might just try that shit out next time. Send it to Trump, like. But in all seriousness, I mean, again, those are those deeply ingrained, embedded things that we know for the most part that, it's a very common belief that, men kind of have to work for it. Women don't have to try that hard. If they want to go out and hook up with somebody in a night, that's going to happen. I mean, if they want it to. Men, on the other hand, they're more of the predator and that sounds bad to say when you're talking like predator and prey, but, they're the ones that go out. And that's kind of the whole chase of it all anyways. A woman is supposed to be pursued and sit back and if you're someone who comes up and approaches a man, you're almost seen like being more whorish or something, and that doesn't have to be the case at all, but you're going to be seen that way. So so much of it. Okay, so I gave the example the other day. If you're driving down the street and let's say you're in a city you don't know, or maybe you're just distracted because your kids are screaming in the back, whatever, you don't realize you're coming up on your exit or on a street that you're supposed to turn on, and you realize it and you go, oh shit, I have to hurry up and get over so I don't miss my turn, and you might have to cut somebody off. You're not trying to be an asshole. You're like, there's stuff going on that other people aren't seeing, so you have to hurry up and do that. And then you go, oh, sorry, or whatever. Or you don't look at them and you whatever. But then, so you can justify that. That's easy for you to understand. Like, I wasn't trying to do anything harmful or rude to anybody. I just needed to make sure that I got that turn, and I was thinking about work still, and I didn't realize it was coming up. But if you're driving and someone does that shit to you, you're cussing them out, you're honking your horn, you're flipping them off. And that's why I said, depending on what seat you're sitting in, anybody could be the asshole. You could feel like an asshole for having to cut somebody off to get over. Or you could call the other person in front of you an asshole for them doing the same thing to you.
One of my favorite quotes is, we're very good lawyers for our own mistakes, but very good judges for other people's mistakes. Like, we can justify our shit all day long. We're never wrong. But other people, we can pick that shit apart.
And that's so
from
true.
Top to bottom.
It's so true. And that's the thing is, like, man, if you think about some of the things that have also been huge issues in the world for such a long time that do not get the attention that they deserve. I just feel like by 2020, everybody in the world should have, decent health care, access to clean water, not have to worry about where food's coming from. And there's so many people around the entire world that aren't having those basic needs met. And we're fighting over these things that are taking such a long time to change, when instead, if we focused our attention on how everybody could help everybody, which I know sounds like, it's coming from, I'm such a hippie and everything, but it just seems to make so much more sense than being so greedy and so power hungry and wanting to secure so much for yourself that you're willing to starve others. And then you end up having excess that you waste because you didn't want somebody else to have a hand in your bucket. It's a very, and I get it. Self-preservation is a big thing. You want to make sure that you and yours are taken care of and your family's protected, but that doesn't have to mean trampling other people to get there. I wonder how your viewers are going to view this, since most of yours have been lighter. You're a very funny dude.
This is going to be deep. This is a deep conversation, which is good.
There's too much going on right now to not talk about some of this stuff, but it is also nice when you can take a step back and find something to laugh about, or find a way to be kind, or something like that. Because I heard Pastor Stephen Furtick say that when we focus so much on fighting the wrong battles, it's like we don't have the energy left for the battles that actually matter. Fight. Yeah. And that's kind of what I feel like some of what's happening right now. That's why the lady who was, she would write these long-winded posts in this.
You still talking about this Facebook lady that you got into it with?
I'm like, I almost felt bad.
Tell me how you really feel.
Even though she was trying to prove a point that I did not agree with, I almost felt bad for her because, you
do a lot of times, like, for people
it's like,
that.
God dang, you are stupid.
Yes.
And you're blind, and you're so convicted to something that's not helpful
to anybody. But it's your narrative, and it's what you. been preaching and believing for so long. So it's like you almost feel like you can't change.
Exactly. And that's what I told her. I said, you know what, if I would have made the huge mistake to support Trump from the beginning and this shit's all like it is now, I probably would feel like I'd have to stand by that
You're in too deep already. Like I've said too much shit about how good he is. I can't look like a dumbass now going back on it.
Right. But at that same time, we have to be able to give people that grace to go, I really thought this thing, but now I'm seeing that it's not what I thought it was, with whatever it is, and give them the room to change. Because I had friends growing up who would say, you know, being light skinned is such a funny thing, because when I was a kid, there were not as many mixed kids in the school. It's like you had the white kids, the black kids, the Hispanic kids, whatever. So you're never as white enough for the white kids. You're never black enough for the black kids. And anybody else, it's like, well, we know you're not Asian or whatever. So it's, you don't even have to try to tread that water.
Yeah.
And so I would always find myself in positions where people would say something extremely racist, and then they look at me and go, well, I don't mean you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
You don't count. You're not black.
Yeah, it's not like you.
You're not white.
Right.
I'm not talking about you.
Not exactly. But it helps you to see people for who they are and what they think they can get away with saying and what they really think when they don't think anybody else is around that would be offended by it. So I always kind of like that in a sense. I've always loved being biracial. I know I have some people that I know that are biracial, and it causes an internal torment for them because of those things. You know, it's like, I'm not this and I'm not that, and I'm like, you have to find the comfort in it, you know.
Yeah, they feel like they don't really belong
on
to
either
any
side.
Yeah,
and I've always seen it as a way for me to kind of bridge gaps and break barriers and ideas and boundaries and things, because I never denied my white side, and I've never denied my black side. I've loved them both, and that helps me to be able to embrace different cultures and different ways of life. Yeah. And then people always are like, are you Puerto Rican? You know, it's always the hair. The hair is that, are you Puerto Rican? Are you this or that? And I'm like, and you know, I just like to see what people think. And it's such a funny thing, because when I can remember when my first job, I was like 14, I worked at Circuit City, and I was working at the DVD and CD desk with this white chick who, she was a bitch anyways. And this dude comes up and we're talking or whatever. And I said, so what are you mixed with? And she was like, the look on her face. And then, you know, we talked, and it was nothing. He was like Hispanic and black. And, you know, after he walked, she was, I cannot believe you asked him that. That is not something you asked him. I was like, dude, I'm mixed. I'm pretty sure I'm cool asking him that. He didn't seem offended. It was more of an interest in like, what you got going on there? You got a good mix going. I like your features. I like your skin tone. I'm curious to know like what you got going on. And it was just crazy, because her being white, I don't think she felt the same space to be able to ask that without coming off offensive.
Just to even bring up race in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a part of it too. I think white people have the right to, you know, be proud about being German or Irish or whatever. It's never been a thing where I'm like, you shouldn't be proud of that. It just seems like so much of it comes from, you know, I'm proud about being white, and that means that I hate all other races, instead of when you have Black pride and Asian pride and, you know, Pacific Islander and all of this stuff. It's, I'm proud because I'm proud, not because I'm proud and I have to put this one down in order to feel proud. That's the view that I've always kind of got from when you hear white pride, it's normally associated with like, I'm proud about being white and all others are inferior. Whereas if you have people saying black love and, you know.
But see, to me, I kind of feel like I feel like that's what it means when everyone says it. I like when I hear like black power or white power, I feel like those are one and the same. Like both of them mean, you know, my race is most important and everyone else's is below mine.
And I don't get that vibe. I get when I hear,
that's how I feel. That's why I've never been a fan of people saying black power or white power or brown power. Like I get that you're proud, but I just feel like that's a slick remark to be like, yeah, like I'm more proud to be black than I would if I was white.
And I don't know. I think, and I don't know. I think that the way I see it is, it's a ownership, and I'm not, embarrassed. There's kind of this self-hate that's been taught. Like, if you are a minority, then you are supposed to feel inferior. So therefore, you shouldn't have pride in your race. Whereas if you say white power, then it already kind of comes with this side note of like, well, you already know that we're up here. You know what I mean? You know it. I know it. It doesn't even have to be said. It's what comes along with it. So when I hear the black power, the brown pride, or, anything else, it's more like, you know what? I'm proud of who I am, and I don't feel inferior. Your idea of beauty is not centered around blonde, blue-eyed, whatever.
Yeah.
That's something that people really struggle with when you think about it. I mean, look how ridiculous that lady, and I cannot think of her name. She was a white woman.
I was about to say, if you're gonna bring up this bitch on Facebook again, Brittany.
I couldn't believe
we gotta. I gotta go.
No, the white lady that she was like involved in black groups and everything, and she was identifying as being black, and then it came out she was white.
Oh, like the politician, or was she?
She was
no. She was
yeah. Okay.
I know you're talking about. And she was just like a white girl with like freckles and curly hair.
And so she looked so ridiculous when it all came out. And you look at her and go, well, what the hell? But then you see, you see black people bleaching their skin and trying to do these other things. And I just feel like it's so sad when people have these ideas about themselves where they don't feel like, who they are beautiful, and they love themselves, regardless of skin tone. So,
and see, I've never really subscribed to being black or white. Mm-hmm. I've always, if people ask me, it's like I'm mixed.
Yeah.
Like I'm half black, I'm half white. But even then, it's like I don't really resonate with one more than the other.
Exactly.
And to me, I've taken pride in that, and just being a human. Like I don't give a fuck if I'm black, white, brown, red, yellow, whatever. Like I'm a good person, but what I do love is that growing up biracial, I have had white friends, I've had black friends, white family, black family, and I love when I go out places with people who are not mixed, and I can, like, if we go to a restaurant or something like that's predominantly black, and the cooks or the waitresses or something have like just like a southern twang to their speech or something, or they talk in slang, and it's like I know exactly what they're saying. They could say some shit that 75% of average people would be like, what? What are you saying? And I'm just going back and forth. I'm like, oh girl, you crazy. Like, you just chill out, Or I can do that. I can go to, the a rich white neighborhood or something, and I can blend in with them and speak in the, most proper of English and just have a full conversation with them, and they not look at me as a young, little kid with tattoos and shit, or some, little hoodlum. Like I can blend easily in any setting that I'm put in. So I feel like that's something that I've benefited from being biracial.
Right. But what happens when people who you can look at and clearly see that they're black, but they're well educated and don't use a lot of street slang, and it's almost like they get targeted from other people in their own communities, or other black,
they get more criticized.
But then also, it is so uncomfortable when, I've had other friends who are biracial who are maybe a little darker than me, and she was telling me she was working in a restaurant, and this couple felt the need to like give her praise that she could speak without using Ebonics. You know what I mean? And she was like, are you serious? It's like that idea of like, oh, you can. She was like, you speak so nicely, or so. I gave her some kind of compliment on it. It's like, so
I can remember talking to Coach Collins, and we were talking about, I think this was before Trump had got elected, and we were talking about Obama and how they were giving Obama like kind of like backhanded compliments, and they would just talk about, oh, he's very elegant in his speech, like he speaks very well.
Like, what
and
do
it's
you
like
expect?
You're supposed to. Like how are you going to act like that's one of his top qualities?
Right.
Is that he's very well
clearly, yeah.
Right.
And obviously, once you're in that light, you're going to, you know what I mean? Like, you have your work self, and then you got your your more family self or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I have a way that I talk with people and that's not being fake. It's being professional. It's being,
professional versus being
adaptive,
just comfortable.
Yeah. And, you know, I wish that, you know, it didn't have to be like that, because I feel more comfortable when I don't have to think so much about, you know, how am I going to phrase this? How am I going to say these things to sound like I know what I'm talking about or something. Mm-hmm. So to be able to cross some of those gaps and boundaries with people, and but it's something that I've been so aware of my whole life, you know, that, it's almost like I don't even really have to think about it. It's like, I know I can be this self in this area, and then I can be free to do this in this other area, and I don't have to try. Yeah.
And it's a lot of just reading the room. I mean, knowing who you're with, because you can have conversations with the most professional people in the highest positions, and they kind of set the mm-hmm, tone mm-hmm. to where it's a comfortable, like, you don't have to, mm-hmm. you know, stand straight and look me in the eye the entire time.
They're real people.
Yeah. And I feel like, that's how most people should be. I get that, you know, professionalism is necessary a lot of times, but you shouldn't judge.
No, because you can learn. I've learned some really valuable lessons from people who maybe didn't even complete college, who don't know how to spell, who, you know, can't do these certain things that you would consider to be educated, but they are some of the most skilled, crafted people, period, that can mm-hmm. run businesses and can make whatever. And so it's like education or having a skill set isn't attached to a degree.
Right.
Or a pedigree, even, for that matter. And, mm-hmm. You know, but it's just so frustrating, because we know where so many of the problems are. We also know that's not where the money's going. And so then it kind of perpetuates these cycles. If people aren't having money in their school systems, and we continue to see the cut in where that funding's going, then it's going to be harder for the majority of those people to break the cycles and understand that there's other opportunities out there, and even seeing it as possible for themselves. So then they buy into this is the only way, and, you know, get it how you live kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it just keeps it going. And then that perpetuates stereotypes people have, and that perpetuates the belief of the cycle you've already been living, when, you know, my mom didn't graduate college, or my dad didn't do this, or whatever. It's not in the cards for me. People believe that, you know.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna grow up to be shit. My dad wasn't shit, mm-hmm. So that's exactly how I'm gonna turn out.
Right. So
I think we're getting a little restless with these dogs over here. But you did say something about how.
I didn't, though.
Well, no, you had said something about how this is a very serious podcast, and, you know, we're getting deeper. Whoa. Just in real issues, real topics. And something that really happened was that...
You threw me under a bus. Okay. That's what really happened.
Can I tell it?
I mean, I think we all kind of know I had nothing to do with it. There was no prior conversation.
Listen, I don't make the rules.
You kind of did on that one.
Well,
you kind of did.
Tomato. Mamba agrees with me that,
he is saying, don't
do you think we should do this?
That. He's saying, don't do her like that.
Do you think we should do this?
We love her. That's what he's saying.
So what we decided on was that... You want to tell it? Go ahead. Okay, I'll tell it. So on Facebook, it was...
See? He's trying to shut it down. He said, don't go there, Dad.
There was... I had posted that if this post got... First it said if it got 30 comments, then I would do it. I changed it. I made it 330. Okay, hey,
by the way.
Sit down.
How is my own friends trying to get in and get their chuckles and their giggles, acting like they're not realizing that they're adding to the comments being made? Hey. And everybody that thought they were funny posted one word at a time. Okay.
You gotta take that up with them. I don't know. I didn't tell them to do that. But it said if I get 330 comments, I will throw a pickle at my sister's head.
Like, where did this even come from?
I don't know. I screenshotted it and posted it myself. But so we had talked about it, and instead of you living in fear having to walk around every corner, not knowing if something's gonna be projected towards that head of yours. So we agreed on, instead of a pickle to the head randomly, we are gonna do pickle slices, and we're gonna see how many you can catch in your mouth. All right, so
there needs to be a timer set, like how many slices in 30 seconds, 25 seconds. There has to be a timer set. And just to put it out there, just so people know how much I love you and support you, what do you know, the 2 things that I told you that everybody should know about me?
That you hate getting hit in the face.
I don't play with that.
And
I'm a sore-ass sport.
You're a sore sport. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot what the second one was.
I don't enjoy being the brunt of a joke, but
those are your 2 bugaboos.
I'm a big baby when it comes to those things.
But hey, like I said, I don't make the rules. I just follow them. So we're gonna get this set up.
We're gonna set a timer.
We'll see.
I mean, the only boys I saw, and they were like my homeboys. I saw maybe 1 or 2 your friend homeboys. But.
Oh, it was definitely a good mix of all the crowds.
Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Vic.
Okay, so we got our pickle slices over here.
Oh my God.
Sliced fresh,
I
ready to go.
don't even like pickles that much.
We'll get you some protective gear going on. Well, you'll love them after this.
Shit.
This will really introduce you to the dill flavor. Okay, you want to... I don't know if I want you running the timer.
All I gotta do is press start.
Let me press start.
No.
We'll set it right here.
Okay.
Set it here. So I want you to know this isn't the reason, but this is the reason why we're doing this, is because your son was over here last week and wanted to ruin the carpet.
So not intentional. Kids are innocent, man. They're just curious. They're, they like to explore.
I'm not buying it. I don't have kids, so I don't know what you mean. Sorry.
Exactly.
Can't relate.
Exactly.
All right.
They are why we don't have nice things. This looks like some big ass chunks, man.
Oh. You better open wide.
Oh my God.
You ready for this?
Not really. I honestly don't even enjoy pickles that much.
Okay, on the count of 3.
I can tell from how you're holding that.
I'm shooting. This is like beer pong.
Oh my God.
Okay, all right, ready, go. Oh, not the laptop. Brittany, open your mouth. There you go. Come on. There we go. Open up. Open. Come on. How much time we got? We're going. Oh, fuck. All right, well. That's good enough. How many did you catch? 3? 4?
Yeah.
You got a little pickle on your eyebrow.
It's tart. Let me tell you.
All right, so we're going to end it off with that. Let everyone know where they can follow you at and keep in contact with you.
I just want to say, first of all, I hope everybody does something for their mental health during these times of uncertainty and stress and tension. I think if everybody kind of takes a minute to focus and do something to make themselves laugh, be grateful, appreciative for what they have, try to help somebody else, it'll help us to focus our attention in the right way when we're trying to better our world as a whole. So I'm on Instagram, Brittany Karibo Fit Mama, Queenstar23. You can get on if you want. I don't post that much, but it's all fun.
Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Catch y'all next time. Peace.